Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Welcome, everyone, to a brand new episode of Anna's English Channel. I'm your host, Anna, and I've been so looking forward to our time together today. We're diving deep into the past today, specifically those moments that define us. We're calling it That Day, the turning point where all your hard work finally paid off.
Hello, Anna. Hello to everyone listening. I'm Leo. You know, that day is a phrase that holds so much power. Most people only celebrate the final moment, but they often forget about the quiet, persistent effort that was happening long before the spotlight arrived. It's those hidden chapters that really define who we are.
Exactly, Leo. And that is why we are using a very specific grammar point today, the past perfect continuous. In English, when we want to describe an action that was ongoing up into a specific point in the past, we use had been plus the ing form. For example, before the race started, Leo had been training for months.
It's the background of the background. It tells the listener how much effort had been occurring behind the scenes. So, as we share our stories today, notice how this tense helps us build the why behind our past experiences.
So let's travel back in time to our first segment, the finish line. Leo, I remember a photo you showed me once. You were at the finish line of a marathon, looking completely exhausted but so happy. Tell me about the morning of that race.
Oh, I remember that morning perfectly. When the starting gun finally fired, I felt this strange mix of relief and fear. Why relief? Because for 6 months before that morning, I had been running every single day at 5 a.m. I had been pushing my body to its absolute limits through the wind and the rain.
6 months of early mornings. That is true dedication. Had you been feeling confident before the race began?
Not really. Even though I had been practicing so hard, I was still nervous. My knees had been hurting for a week, and I had been worrying that I wouldn't finish. But because I had been visualizing that finish line every night for half a year, my mind was ready, even if my body felt weak.
It's amazing how that long preparation carries you. You had been building that strength for a long time. I remember feeling a similar kind of physical exhaustion when I moved into my first apartment. I had been packing boxes for 3 days straight before the moving truck finally arrived.
I remember that move, Anna. You looked like a zombie when I saw you. How long had you been living in your old place before you decided to move?
I had been living there for nearly 10 years. 10 years of stuff had been accumulating in the closets and under the bed. For weeks before the move, I had been trying to organize everything, but it felt impossible. I had been sorting through old photos and letters until my eyes were blurry every night.
That's the hardest part of moving, the memories. I remember you told me that you had been feeling very emotional during those weeks.
Yes, I had been thinking about all the versions of me that had been living in that small apartment. I had been planning this move for a year, but when the day finally came, I realized I had been holding on to a lot more than just furniture. I had been carrying my past with me.
But once you were in the new place, everything felt fresh. It was a new chapter. It's like when you finally get a promotion at work. By the time you get the new office, you had been dreaming about it for years.
Speaking of promotions, I remember when you finally became a senior designer. Everyone celebrated, but I knew how much work had been happening before that announcement.
Oh man, for a whole year before that promotion, I had been working late every single Tuesday and Thursday. I had been managing 3 different projects at the same time, and I had been trying to prove to the manager that I was ready for more responsibility.
And you had been doing an amazing job. Had the company been looking for a new senior designer for a long time?
Yes, they had been searching for 6 months, and I had been feeling quite frustrated because they had been interviewing people from outside the company. I had been telling myself to stay patient, but it was hard. I had been putting all my energy into my portfolio, hoping they would notice.
And they finally did. When they called you into the office, you had been waiting for that moment for a long time. It wasn't just luck. It was the result of the effort that had been continuing for months. It's like a long trip. By the time you reached the destination, you had been traveling for hours.
Exactly. It reminds me of that trip to the coast we took. Remember? Before we finally saw the ocean, we had been driving through that thick fog for 3 hours.
Oh, I remember. We couldn't see anything. We had been hoping for a sunny day, but the weather had been getting worse and worse as we got closer to the water. I had been staring out the window, trying to find a sign of the sea, but everything was just white.
I had been griping about the GPS. I had been arguing with the machine because it had been telling me to turn left when there was no road. We had been feeling so disappointed because we had been planning that perfect beach day for weeks.
But then the fog lifted. When we finally reached the shore, the sun had been hiding just above the mist. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. The long, boring drive through the fog had been making the final view even more magical.
It was a great lesson. Sometimes the struggle makes the reward better. It reminds me of when I tried to learn how to play the piano. I had been struggling with one specific song for an entire month before I finally played it perfectly.
I remember hearing you practice. Every time I walked past your door, you had been playing the same 3 bars of music over and over again.
I had been driving myself crazy. I had been repeating those notes until my fingers had been cramping. I had been wondering if I was just not talented enough. I had been thinking about quitting every single day that week.
But you didn't. Had you been taking lessons, or had you been teaching yourself?
I had been teaching myself using videos online. I had been pausing and rewinding the same video for hours. But that night, when it finally clicked, I realized that my brain had been working on the problem even when I wasn't at the piano. All that bad practice had been preparing me for the breakthrough.
That's the beauty of it. The work had been occurring in your subconscious. It's the same with social anxiety. I remember a big party I went to last year. Before I walked through the door, I had been worrying about what to say for hours.
You? Worried? But you are so good with people, Anna.
Not that night. For 2 days before that party, I had been imagining every possible awkward situation. I had been overthinking my outfit, and I had been practicing my small talk in the mirror. I had been feeling so anxious that I almost stayed home.
And what happened when you finally arrived?
I realized that everyone else had been feeling the same way. As I talked to people, I found out that my friend Sarah had been stressing about her new job, and Mark had been worrying about his health. We had all been carrying our own little clouds of stress into the room.
It's funny how we think we are alone in our feelings. You had been building up this huge fear in your mind, but reality was much kinder. It's like learning a language. You can feel so nervous, but then you realize that the person you had been fearing is actually very happy to talk to you.
That is the perfect connection to our listeners. Think about that first time you finally understood a whole movie in English. Before that moment, you had been studying for a long time.
Yes. For me, it happened during a flight. I had been listening to English podcasts, like yours, Anna, for months. I had been repeating phrases and I had been trying to catch the rhythm of the language. I had been feeling like I was making no progress at all.
That plateau feeling. How long had you been feeling stuck before it changed?
I had been feeling stuck for about 3 months. But then, on that plane, I turned on a movie, and suddenly, I realized I had been understanding every word for the last 10 minutes without even thinking about it. My brain had been translating everything automatically. All those months of listening had been preparing me for that jump.
It's an amazing feeling. You had been filling your language bucket drop by drop, and it finally overflowed. To our listeners, if you feel frustrated right now, remember Leo's story. You have been working hard, and your brain has been learning, even if it doesn't feel like it yet. The past perfect continuous reminds us that the background work always matters.
It's all about the persistence. Whether it's a marathon, a move, a career, or a language, the had been doing part of the story is what makes the did part so special.
Exactly. Today, we have been exploring the long road to that day. We have been using the past perfect continuous to honor the effort that had been happening in the dark.
We have been talking about how our past struggles had been shaping us. It has been a very emotional and inspiring trip through our memories. I hope our listeners have been thinking about their own background stories while they listened.
I hope so too. To everyone listening, look at your successes. Think about how long you had been trying before you succeeded. Be proud of that person who had been working so hard in the past. That person is the reason you are here today.
Well said, Anna. Thank you for another great conversation. I had been looking forward to this all day, and it was even better than I expected.
Me too, Leo. Thank you, everyone. You have been wonderful companions on this journey. Until next time, keep looking back with kindness, keep moving forward with hope, and keep speaking. Goodbye for now.
Goodbye.